Thank you, Helen, for organizing this event, and I'm honored to be here among such distinguished AI artists. My theory of creativity emerged from studying highly creative people, and it led me to define creativity as the production of new knowledge or artifacts from what already exists. My present book, The Artist and the Machine, focuses on machine creativity with the theme that machines can have human characteristics of creativity and so be creative like us, and then go far beyond because machines have the potential for unlimited creativity. We want machines to inspire us and surprise us with art, literature, and music of a sort that we presently cannot even imagine. The big step will be taken when there is no longer a human in the loop and machines create art, literature, or music from their own life experiences. Consciousness is essential to human creativity. After struggling with the problem of consciousness for some years, I've come to the conclusion that it results from the data processing of information by the 100 billion neurons in our brain. And so consciousness is computable, it's reducible to numbers, and so there is no reason why computers cannot have consciousness. I can imagine a future for art in which there'll be three strands. One, humans producing conventional art. Two, humans collaborating with machines. And three, machines working on their own. So while we should keep in mind big questions like can machines be creative? Can machines create art? We should also keep in mind the question, can we as humans learn to appreciate art that we know has been created by a machine? By then, the notion of what it means to be a human being will have been dramatically transformed, for are we not merging with machines? Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Doug Geers. I create music. I'm very interested in multimedia and collaborative work. I like to create new instruments, both hardware and software, and perform. I think Arthur mentioned this earlier, that the way computers operate and what they come up with are not necessarily what a human would want or request sometimes, but it can be both perplexing and delightful. I've done a lot of work with what I would simply call cyborgs, having the computer be a tool in the hand of or a sort of meta instrument on top of a human performer. And then more autonomous software bots that interact with people, and sort of autonomous hardware bots that also interact with people. This is from about 12 years ago. I did a piece with the Princeton University Laptop Orchestra. Each of these people on stage is waving a Nintendo Wii remote, which is attached to a laptop and producing sound. And as they move physically, they're sending signals to the laptop, generating sound. It's an interesting hybrid kind of approach to humans making gestures in the real physical world, but also producing artistic shapes and sounds that relate to those gestures. This is another piece called Oracle, which was a collaboration with violinist Maya Sarar. And in this work, we collaborated with Esther Lamnick, a clarinetist, and produced a piece in which they perform with a software entity that interacts and reacts to them as they play. I had for years wanted to design and build a robot marching band, and had this idea that it's both a technical and artistic challenge to figure out how to get these entities to move, to be choreographed, to produce sound, to react to one another, and produce interesting marching band music. So I started working with a very simple Arduino-based system, but I tried to build a system that would listen to a human performer and respond in both motion and sounds. And the sounds would be produced by the robot locally, not just from speakers on the wall. You could see that there's a violinist playing with the robot. It's responding both in terms of its motion and producing sound. All right, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Annie, and I want to start by playing a clip from my first algorithm piece.
Imagine a game. A man and a woman are having a talk. There is a third person reading their dialogue in a separate room. The object of the game is for the reader to determine which is the man and which is the woman. He knows them by labels A and B, and at the end of the game he says either is a man and B is a woman, or is a woman and B is a man. What will happen when a machine takes the part of the man in this game? Will the reader get it wrong as often when the game is played like this as he does when the game is played between two people? This question replaces the old, can machines think?
I love games.
You're going to lose.
Thanks a lot for telling me I am going to lose.
You're very welcome.
I think we better define our terms.
By we do you mean you and me?
Yes, I mean us.
Oh, thanks for explaining that. Does us mean the US or us?
Oh, I think it depends on the context.
Great.
So it seems to me, and it was part of the project behind Hello Hi There and my other algorithm works, that one of the big tasks of art, always, but now too, is to demystify some of the illusions that we're asked to believe in, and to help us all see a little bit more clearly the truth of the world that we're living in. The first thing that I've been thinking about is that when we're curious about something a machine learning algorithm does, or any algorithm for that matter, when we think it's funny, or when we think it's clever, or when we think it's obscene in either a good way or a bad way, that's our brains being intelligent. That's not the machine being intelligent. We assign value. And I've been thinking that we really should start to maybe shift our understanding of creativity altogether, whether human or machine, and understand it as a property of the spectator and the listener and the receiver, to understand creativity as a collaborative effort between the maker and the audience. And here's the late, great Bernard Stegler, who very sadly died in August. For Stegler, the central myth is Prometheus. And he says, if we want to understand the question of technics as it poses itself to us today in the 21st century, we must go back to ancient Greek mythology. Prometheus will steal fire, and man will be a mortal living being condemned to fabricate prostheses. In other words, man has no qualities. He's obliged to endlessly equip himself with new artifices for survival. And since they have no quality defined in advance, men enter into conflict with one another. Some say we should do this, others say no, we should do that. The animal, the zebra, the cow, they have no question to pose concerning who are we. But for man, it's an eternal question. What should we do? Should we develop computers? Shall we land on the moon? Shall we raise that forest? Should we do that? Technics is the question. As soon as I'm technical, I'm questioning. So I'll just end there with that question. What should we do? Thanks very much.
I'm part of the University of California, San Diego Visual Arts Department, but I came to the department trying to consider a different formation, not just between human and machine or algorithm, but an expanded space of artificial social intelligence. And part of the work that emerged was a dialogue between conceptual structures of electronic civil disobedience that emerged in the 1980s and the emergence of indigenous communities deep in the Laconda jungle in Chiapas, Mexico. They created what the New York Times called the first postmodern revolution. It was manifested by a numbers of individual IPs or internet addresses that joined the e-action. The program then amplified these numbers by allowing network actants to set the speed of the sit-in. And the works that we have done since then point to another condition, which is this artificial social intelligence between machine, the machinic, and the social.
So let me ask you, can autonomous machines be creative and create art of their own?
The creativity and intelligence is not in the machine, and it might not be in the human being, but again, it's in the interaction between those spaces that activate the possibility of creativity. So that what I'm trying to name is the artificial social intelligence doesn't really reside within each of the different components, but allows something else to emerge.
Well, certainly Einstein's creativity resided in Einstein. He did communicate with others also, as everyone does.
You know, the concept of the sole artistic genius is something that is not, that I question a bit. Rather than looking at particular people, I would look at large trends. And to me, the trend in AI or computing and creativity is that, you know, when audio was first synthesized by a computer in 1957, somebody wrote the code that enabled the computer to do that.
Let me just interrupt with a story here. We know that Mozart's father taught Wolfgang the rules of composition, but we don't attribute Wolfgang's music to his father. Okay, so machines can go beyond their programs, and indeed they have shown that they can go beyond.
One thing that's kind of interesting to question is the authorship question. And if someone makes an amazing tool and then someone else is making art with it, to what degree should they give some kind of credit to the creator or developer of the software?
Let me throw out another question, and we can mix that in this melange here. The only creativity we know is ours. And so my approach and others to machine creativity is that one has to understand precisely what we mean by creativity in terms we can apply to us and to machines. So can you imagine creativity being redefined in the age of AI?
Machine learning algorithms, I almost don't want to use the term AI because we're really talking about machine learning. What they do, if we want to start calling that really creative, you know, it's a massive devaluation of our notion of creativity.
Why?
Because it's essentially a high-powered pattern recognition and imitation tool.
That's what we do.
Well, it's one of the things, maybe.
One of the things we do, but I mean, we work on data, you know, our memories and so on and so
Yeah,
forth.
I'm just not a reductionist in that way. I think that, like Turing, I would say we're no closer to understanding how we think, what thought is, how we do it, where it comes from, than they were in 1950.
Well, I think there have been advances in psychology and cognitive science for how we think. I mean, one big advance is a metaphor that we think that the human brain processes information as if it were a computer. And in the reverse, there have been big advances too, that computers act as if they are human brains.
There's always an epistemic that reflects the way we imagine we think. It could be as a clockwork, it could be as a steam engine, or it could be as agriculture. That is, whatever the current fetish is as a society tends to be translated into how we think. Perhaps what is really at play in creativity is not the production or construction in the way perhaps Annie was pointing to, that is the problem of thinking that we're computers or computers are thinking like us, but that we're constantly striving to create understandings around glitches, around fault lines.
Yeah, precisely.
And those are more difficult.
Those advances is to understanding better how we think and how we create ideas and so
Again, you know, I think the Enlightenment has shown us that every time we think something's better, it might lead to greater failures and catastrophes.
What we're talking about is actually technological advance and scientific advance taken over by politicians. And sure, there can be problems there.
There's a problem with politicians, and there's a problem with computers. And certainly there's a problem in our social landscape of power.
Right.
So I don't think we can fetishize any of these things. And I think art is a space where we break those things apart.
Like Google's Magenta is a AI music tool that's available for free online. But there's a lot built into that about what is music and what is important to do in music and what is good music. And I, as a creator, want to be able to twist it, you know, and stretch it and break it. And I think that it's valuable for us to continue to engage because we don't want to just be receivers of the technology, because then we lose our voice.
The history of aesthetics in Kant is about the terror of the sublime. And somehow I think that if AIs do proceed in creating great works of art, it might be the state in which they themselves come under erasure and are no longer able to manifest or be cognizant of what may come after them.